It's us, Vietnam Young Lions 2022 is back with a super duper brave move and having a great lip up by inviting international experts from all over the world to be here with us, advising for a It's us, Vietnam Young Lions 2022 is back with a super duper brave move and having a great lip up by inviting international experts from all over the world to be here with us, advising for a national competition and supporting young Viet talents to step up It's us, Vietnam Young Lions 2022 is back with a super duper brave move and having a great lip up by inviting international experts from all over the world to be here with us, advising for a national competition and supporting young Viet talents to step up and step closer to a wilder, bigger success. You will have a privilege listening to them who are willing to share their experiences of what's happening out there in the marketing and communication industry. Don't worry, you won't lose anything but gaining a huge knowledge and even being inspired by them to do your best winning the intensive competition. The most popular categories is digital and we're honored to have Ms. Jenessa to be our jury president. Her career highlights include working on global digital transformation work in the CPG industry, development and launch of a O2O service in retail, digital products development for a multinational entertainment company. Alrighty, from now on, you don't have to admire them from far, but actually have a chance to listen, absorb knowledge, and take great advice from them. We'll let you see them shortly, so do stay tuned.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Last but not least, welcome you guys to our final inspiring session today, especially to those who have been nominated under the most popular categories, digital. Let me introduce myself again. My name is Anne, a competitions coordinator of Vietnam Young Lions 2022, and also your special master of ceremonies throughout this entire competitions. Being here hopefully will boost up your passions, your energy, your confidence towards Vietnam Young Lions 2022. Within these sections, as I mentioned above, from the video that you just saw, we are lucky enough to have Ms. Jenessa, who are now a vice president currently working at Dentsu Digital Japan, and who is willingly to share her experiences of what is actually happening in the marketing and communications world in 45 minutes, and maybe a little bit about her career as well. That might even inspire you to take that confidence out of you trying to win this intensive competitions. Finger crossed, and I wish you will be able to take a lesson or two in order to conquer your brief, which will be distributed tomorrow. And of course, to convince your jury panels on the day. After that, we also prepared a Q&A section just for you guys. In this section, you have 15 minutes to raise any questions or concern with Ms. Jenessa. Raise your hand and ask in English or write down in the chat box below, then I'll translate the questions for you. All right, I'm passing the stage to you. Let's start our sessions. Are you ready?
Yes, hello everyone. As mentioned, I am Jenessa Carter, and I want to start our inspiration session by getting you to think about something, which is the shape of the world is you. And that will really be the theme of what I'm talking about. And what it means, it's things that are near and dear to your heart, really are changing the digital industry and can be the core of the inspiration for not only your career in marketing and communications, but also things that we can do to change the world. So moving forward to the next slide, as mentioned, my name is Jenessa. I'm Vice President of Consumer Experience Strategy, which that's kind of like a very buzzword term these days, but that's core to making things feel good and act good for us as ordinary people. And I work in the global business department of Dentsu Digital. And that means that I work every day on businesses that want to come and do business in Japan, but also businesses that are Japanese that want to do business outside of Japan. And you might be wondering, do I speak Japanese? No, not really. I speak like a 5-year-old. So I want you to also remember that you can do many things in our industry, even though you might feel like your tool set is kind of limited. And in my sense, I don't speak Japanese, but I work here and work on global business. So moving forward, I mentioned that the shape of the world is you on the next slide. And I want to start today by telling you a story about how I created that shape in my career early on. So moving forward to the next page, there was a time where I realized that I work in the best industry possible, and you are working in the best industry possible. Of course, we are super biased because this is the career path we've chosen or what we've studied in school. But I want to show you why this is a really magical career and why digital is an amazing career choice as well. So moving forward to the next slide, there was a time very early in my career where my company was invited to the most amazing project, but I was not. And my colleague got the opportunity to start working on this amazing project. And I looked over at her thinking, I want to do that. That is so cool. And it was a meaningful project. I could see how it directly would change people's lives. And I had all the skill sets. It's just at that moment, I was really busy on other clients. And I want to tell you this story because there are times when you will face that too. But be patient, because in my case, the times changed and I was actually able to work on that project. Now, moving forward on the next slide, what that project was is actually working for something called the Ad Council. The Ad Council is an amazing organization in America. I'm American, working in Japan, by the way. And the Ad Council helps agencies work for causes that are important social issues. This is things like drug awareness, or maybe awareness of orphanages, or awareness of different ethnic groups or different sexualities and things like that. But what we were tasked to do is do America's first ever campaign about wasting food and food waste. And this was quite a challenge because it was the first campaign ever. Now, moving forward to the next slide, this was around 2016 when we started working on this. And the research that we found on the next slide is that that a lot of America wastes food. Our job was just to teach that this is a problem in America. We also found that it was something that not a lot of Americans really thought was a problem back in 2016. So the first part of our campaign was really just to teach people. And all we did was offline media at that moment. We did a little bit of digital ads, but all it was offline communication. And our hope and our dream was that in the future, we could build tools that could help people actually change their behavior. But in order to make those tools actually usable, we had to use offline media to make them aware of that. We hoped that this future would be close, but we thought maybe it would be like 30 years away, actually. But fast forward on the next slide, I found myself in a situation having a conversation in 2019, just 3 years later, with a very senior person at the James Beard Foundation. The James Beard Foundation is a foundation that helps train wonderfully talented chefs. And they had seen the offline media campaign, and they had taken that and created a whole series of training to teach their chefs that they were influencing about food waste. They did this through online communication. Then, just this year, just last month, I was watching the American Super Bowl, and that's on the next page. And I saw a television commercial that surprised me so much. And this was for a mayonnaise company. It's called Hellman's Mayonnaise. And at the very end of the commercial, they had this shot, make taste, not waste. The whole commercial was about food waste. And I pretty much died and fell out of my chair at that moment because it's 2022. Our campaign started in 2016. Our dream was that Americans would realize that food waste was a national issue in 30 years. And in less than 7, it became a national topic and the most important social event of an American holiday, which is the Super Bowl, as you know. that's pretty cool. So I wanted to tell you that because you're young in your career or in college, and sometimes we feel like we don't have the power to change the world, but you do. And sometimes you'll find yourself in a situation where your client doesn't ask you, they ask somebody else. But be patient, persevere, and continue on, because that's what I was able to do. And now I actually influence national American topics, which is pretty cool, and help change the world for a better place. But all that being said, is on the next page, the this is a ripple effect, that what you do today can make massive changes. Sometimes we think we're just the junior people, or sometimes we think we're just doing digital, or we're just doing an offline campaign. But the really cool thing about our industry is we have the power to touch so many people's lives, people who we're never going to meet, people who, in my cases, I don't speak the same language as them and have different life experiences than me. And that's the amazing thing about what we do. So if you go to the next slide, that's what my presentation is all about, is that really the shape of tomorrow is you. And it's all about, on the next page, the things that you think about and how you face the challenges and the briefs that your clients give you, the creativity that you apply, and the critical thinking. That's what changes tomorrow and makes the world a better place. So if we go to the next page, what we are facing today, not only in Vietnam, but around the world, is really complex. A lot of the issues our clients are going through relate to things that the United Nations is talking about. They talk about things that maybe you've heard about. These are called the Sustainable Development Goals. There's 17 of them, and these are all really complex, major topics in the world, but they all help make the world a better place. These are all things that don't have someone or something to blame, but they're kind of intertwined, interrelated, and they all relate to the types of things that our clients will go through too. But through working with our clients, we can actually make change. It's just what Hellmann's mayonnaise figured out in order to make that American Super Bowl commercial. So the other thing that we learned in the food waste campaign, and some of the other projects I've worked on is on the next page, that in order to solve these issues, we have to not just think about what the problem is. We have to think about us as human beings, and our target audience is that none of us really like to feel blamed or guilty about something or have somebody point their fingers to us. It's not okay for brands to do that either, even though these issues that we're facing are really complex, kind of scary and things. And it's easy to place fingers on people and blame people, but actually we need tools and empowerment as people to actually make change and look towards a better future. We found this in our food waste campaign really early on, but in our campaign in the beginning, it wasn't about creating these tools. We couldn't make the tools without making people actually care about food waste and realize that it was a problem. So about 3 years into our campaign, we started to create digital tools. And if you go to the website savethefood.com, you'll actually see some of these tools that we created. And all of these tools are about giving people ways that they can create less waste in their life. So sometimes digital things are about creating tools and giving people empowerment and getting them to think about what are small ways they personally can make a difference on these big things. This is the research that we found in our early work. And on this page, this is some work that was just produced last week, I think, by Kantar Media. They're a research company that talks about customer behaviors all over the world and are a really good resource when you want to know about customer behavior and customer sentiment. And they actually found the exact thing that we found in our early research about food waste, which is that when we had something that was really negative, that made people feel guilty or sad, inadequate in any kind of way, they just kind of shut down. And Kantar found that too. They found that brands that have negative messaging or don't give their customers tools, ways to do some things on their own, make people shut down. But on the flip side, if you think about positivity and encouragement, and you give people a way to help themselves or kind of pat them on their back for making an effort, then people respond, and there's positivity towards the brand, and people want to contribute to that world action. They don't feel like it's an issue that's totally insurmountable or not something that can be achieved. On the next page, what they're actually really saying is that in order to get our customers to act, we need to help make sure that their hearts can align with their heads. Because sometimes, we want to participate in a topic. For instance, sometimes we want to buy organic food, but our budgets are small and we can't afford that. So if we look for ways to help people make small changes in their lives and make their hearts and their heads align, then people can actually act. So this is that difference that this chart is showing, is how can you solve that difference between the value and action gap? How can you help motivate people and change people to actually act for the cause that you're trying to achieve? Now, in my research, we've found two things, and that's the idea of convenience and impact. And the idea is that things must be easy to do, must be small ways that we can make change. They have to be convenient. It's why so many people like Shopee and Lazada and Amazon, because it's convenient to get everything delivered to you. It's a little bit annoying sometimes to have to go far out of your way to the store. So we choose the easier route, even though we don't always love supporting the big company. And impact. Impact is all about making things positive and feeling like you're actually creating change and adding momentum. So on the next page, I'll explore these just a little bit further. I mentioned that convenience is about making things easy, making things manageable, helping to make things unforgettable, because sometimes we've got a lot of stuff going on in our day. We're busy people, got a lot of things to study for, families to attend to, messages from our friends, whatever. And we have to find ways to insert our message into their existing lives. We have to make things desirable, we have to make it kind of exciting or interesting, compelling to their minds. And sometimes we have to make it immediate, because if you're going to make me sign up for a bunch of things and give you a lot of information, I might do it later, and then I actually might forget. And then we have to make it flexible, because especially in this world, and I'm a great example of that, I don't speak Japanese, so I can't fill out things in Japanese languages. I can't use kanji characters. I need to put in English characters because that's what I understand. So we have to look for ways to add flexibility into what we design for customers. On the other side, when we talk about impact, I said it's all about positivity. Oh, if we can go back 1 second. It's about positivity and making things visible. I once worked on a campaign for guns in America, or gun violence in America. And although Americans do think that gun violence is an issue, they forget about it until something bad happens, and then it becomes a national issue again. So we always have to remember that when it's an issue that we care about, we need to make it relevant to people. We also need to make it social, because sometimes just getting people to talk in their social groups or their friends and family keep it relevant. And we also need to make it gratifying in the sense that I need to feel like I made a difference, not just, said something, posted something on Twitter or Instagram, and it went away the next day, and that didn't really make a difference. I need to know that I helped somebody. Even better if you tell me the actual person that I helped. So going on to the next page, when we look at the examples I'm going to show you, you'll notice that when we used to talk about digital things, and even when I started my career, digital stuff used to be a campaign or something that was posted on social. Sometimes it was a website, but really almost every day I am working in a product or a service or sometimes an entire platform like a network or something. Sometimes I'm building technology. And usually that's enabled by mobile because, as you know, we all spend so much time on our mobile phones. But I want you to think really broad about this category because it's not all about campaigns and social media. It really is about products and services and things that influence people's lives. So today is about inspiration and getting you really excited. Hopefully you're already kind of excited, but I want to show you some examples to get your head thinking and to just feel what's out there in digital today. So I talked about convenience and impact. So I'm going to take a look at convenience and impact with you and show you some of the things that are happening there. So first on the next page, we'll look at convenience and explore what are ways that we can take inspiration from digital technology today and make things convenient and easy for customers. As mentioned, I am a CX strategist, consumer experience strategist. So I'm going to show you some trends via some stats and statistics because I was looking and starting from human behavior and what are people doing is really important to getting to a great creative output. So first, on the next page, you might find that you yourself used to want to own certain cool things. We as a society used to buy a lot, but now what we're starting to see in human culture really all over the world is a rise of a return market or a resale market, meaning that sometimes we don't want to own things, we just want to borrow something for a period of time. In Japan, you see in the background there, that's actually a kimono. And so when young people, roughly your age, about 21 here, turn that age, or 22, I think, sorry, no, it's 20. When they turn that age, they actually rent kimonos. They're very expensive and they go to the local temple and shrine and they're all dressed up in their kimono. So it's no longer about buying them like it used to be. These kimonos used to be passed down by generation. Now it's actually about renting them and just borrowing them for that moment. In the US, we have the same thing for wedding dresses and things like that. So think about how once we used to own things, now we're starting to return things or borrow them for just a period of time. On the next page, this is actually a contributing factor to something called the circular economy today. Earlier, I mentioned the Sustainable Development Goals, and this is related to that actually, because it's reducing waste, it's reducing a lot of the supply cycles and things like that. But the circular economy is all about thinking about the life cycle of goods and products and the life cycle of the people that create these products and things like that. So sometimes we think about only the first time a product is bought, the first time a customer interacts with a brand, but there might be an afterlife. There might be a way to revive products. And I'm actually seeing a lot of clients start to talk to us about that. So let me show you some of the ways that this is happening. On the next page, you'll see a couple of examples that talk about subscriptions. So you might have actually done some subscription things yourself. Maybe you've bought groceries via subscription, or you've bought a beauty box or something like that. But now what we're seeing is subscription boxes for things like an entire apartment of furniture, or all of the dishes that you need for your first apartment, or everything you need in college. So you own it for 4 years in college, and then you return it. In the upper left, this is an example of Muji. It's a furniture brand here in Japan, or kind of like IKEA. And then the bottom right is an American example of Feather. Same thing, they target young people and help you own something for a period of time, really cheap, and then return it when you're done with it, or you need to move apartments. The next example I want to show you is the resale market. I'm sure you've probably have many of these in your life, but a big one here in Asia is Mercari, and another big one in America is eBay. It's been around for quite some time, of course, but these are seeing a huge rise in popularity recently, and especially with luxury goods. And the idea is that many products last quite a long time, and we don't always need to be throwing away things, that there can be second and third owners of different products, and that this can actually be fundraisers for things like charities and things like that. So think about the resale marketplace and how you might be able to take advantage of this. We also see small businesses like independent people like me starting a resale marketplace, like on the store like Etsy or something like that. And there's things like, how do I make my store discoverable? And how can I put special words for people that are really interested in this really unique niche object that I might collect? For instance, I make Japanese textiles. So I might talk about Japanese textiles on my profile on these websites. So there's kind of some special small business branding that's also happening on these resale markets. That's pretty cool. Another example of this circular economy and things that we can think about post-purchase is on the next page. This is actually an American brand called Patagonia. And Patagonia makes jackets, fleece jackets. So if you like mountain climbing and hiking and things, you might know the brand. But they actually created an entirely new business dedicated to supporting the SDGs, where you can bring back your Patagonia jacket. And some retailers like H&M also do this, where you can bring back your products and they'll use the materials and make something new. But what Patagonia does is they created an entire e-commerce, meaning online store, platform for returning your old Patagonia jacket and then allowing another person to buy it from you. So it's pretty cool because they created a resale marketplace on their own. And if you return your Patagonia jacket, you of course get credit and you're helping to save the world. It's a win-win for everybody. There are some luxury brands that are also doing the same thing with luxury handbags and shoes, luxury dresses. They'll clean the objects and then they'll repost them. And it's also a way to help prevent things like the black market, or, you know, sometimes you buy an object and you're not sure if it's credible. These brands will create a store to help not only prevent the black market, but also help from an SDG point of view. And finally, some retailers also do this. So in the UK, there's a retail store called Selfridges, I believe, and they actually have an entire service towards helping you clean your handbags and your shoes and give it a longer life. And you can choose to resell your objects if you wish in their store. So that's about the circular economy and moving from ownership to reselling. Now I want to talk a bit about how we're viewing content in a different way and in a more convenient way. So on the next page, I'll show you that we used to look at longer form content and it was a little bit more formal. You know, we used to read things like newspapers, magazines, things that were well thought out for a very long time. And I'm sure, as you know, in your own life, we're reading things like Twitter and we're reading things on Instagram, and things are a lot more short, a lot faster. You're looking at TikTok all the time and an hour goes by, 2 hours go by, and you've read so much so quickly. Whereas maybe when you were, maybe not when you were a kid, when I was a kid, we read magazines and things like that were much longer, took a long time to produce. And that's not new to you, I'm sure. But what's important is how you're communicating today is really influencing a lot of other brands. So we often look at what's happening in social media and the patterns of how we're consuming content in social media, because this is creating interaction patterns. So for instance, when Instagram first came out, they decided in their format that they would have square pictures. Then square pictures became the coolest thing. When Tinder came out, Tinder is an online dating app, if you're not sure, and they did this swipe left, swipe right thing to choose partners, and that became a cool thing for app design. So in your culture, what you're seeing is a lot of people using YouTube, a lot of people using TikTok. Video is huge, right? So video is going to become really important to communication in all things that are not even just social media, anything you're communicating, because that's the way people are receiving messages today. And specifically short form video. And it's kind of breaking the way we used to think about traditional communications. So really in like a ton of industries. So let me show you, because there's some really cool things that hopefully you're nodding your head and being like, oh yeah, I know about this. Because on the next page, what's awesome in Vietnam is that TikTok's being used for education. You know, we see in many cultures, TikTok being used for tutorials or raising awareness about different topics for sure. But TikTok, one of the top trends in TikTok and in Vietnam is learn on TikTok. So basically school on TikTok. But you know, school, when I was in school, was never about watching social media videos for 2 hours. But now it can easily become where you're curating your whole school with really cool TikTok videos. So what I want you to be inspired by is think differently. Just because a platform was created for a particular purpose doesn't mean that's how you have to use it. TikTok wasn't supposed to be school or education, but it's how people are communicating. So see if you can think about the platforms that are relevant for your brief and try to use them a little bit differently, maybe like this example. Another example of using bite-sized information is on the next page. So we're not only consuming video in short form, but you know, text messages and the way that we communicate, less pick up the phone and talk to people for hours, more send an audio message or send a text message, is seeing a rise in a bunch of industries. So that back example is actually some corporate training that some B2B companies are doing, delivering entire compliance videos, which means like, how do you adhere to the law in your local region via text message. And so over the course of several weeks, you can just keep getting text messages from your company, and then you took the compliance video. And I can tell you, compliance videos are never fun. And usually it's like 2 hours of sitting down watching something that's not so exciting. But this company is kind of breaking the mold, something that fits into your lives. It's super convenient to just read a text message. It's not super convenient to sit down for 2 hours and watch something that you don't want to do, but you know you have to do. So think about how you can make things fit into people's lives by small text messages or something. The bottom example, the pink one, is actually a library. And the library is helping people read books, one story, one Instagram story at a time. And that's also really cool because it's bite-sized content. Something people want to do is be more educated, but we don't always have time to sit down again for 2 hours or whatever and read. But we do have time for a couple Instagram stories, right? So maybe you can break this idea of having to do something really laborious or really big into small bite-sized pieces. So we'll move on. We used to talk about mass things and individual things, meaning we used to talk about mass communication. Now we're breaking it and talking about exactly what an individual needs. That's on the next page. So this is all about personalization and what people actually need. I'll fast forward to the next page. And right now, in the last year, there's been a huge increase in globalization in Vietnam. What Google is reporting is that there's a ton of searches that are happening of how Vietnamese people can access things in other languages. And this is really important because I'm sure you feel in your life, and I certainly do, that there's a lot of things that are not made for us and a lot of things that are not super accessible. But this is really cool because there's a rise in speaking to me, Jenessa, living in Japan, who doesn't speak Japanese. There's a bunch of tools coming out that help me. And this is all this idea of inclusive UX, which I'll talk about in a second. Related to this is on the next page, is making everything digital accessible. So sometimes digital things are built by people who are not the actual users. And you might have experienced this yourself. You might even notice that my voice is kind of high and weird and maybe sounds like a kid. And so when I use voice technology, it doesn't recognize me. And the reason is because there are people who don't sound like me training the voice technology. So we have to think about differently kind of how we train technology for a wide variety of people. In the same idea is on the left-hand side, where sometimes AR technology, augmented reality, doesn't recognize a wide variety of people. The example on the left is kind of strange because it's this girl and the AR isn't recognizing her ethnicity, so it makes her look kind of funny. So this whole industry is on the next page. What this is, it's about making digital tools inclusive for a wide variety of people. And sometimes we can take existing tools that are out there in the marketplace and just add to them. So the back example is Zoom, what we're using right now. You might not know that there's a translation function in there. So you can have an interpreter live with you and they can interpret the entire session. I use this almost every day in my job, and it helps me function in a bilingual environment. Another example is the front example, and you might start to see, especially this coming year, all these ways that websites can be adapted to people with different disabilities, hearing disabilities or sight disabilities, because sometimes, you know, the internet is really hard to use if you can't see or you can't hear. So there's tools and plugins that you can add to your website that make anybody be able to use your website. And these are facilitated usually through pop-up windows and so on. But another thing you can do is on the next page. These are all brands that are thinking about how you can build inclusive tools in the offline world, meaning not online, that can help people navigate a digital world. So Zozo is a really cool retail company here in Japan. And Zozo is primarily physical goods like clothing and makeup and such. And what they did on the left is they actually allow you to sign up to get a bodysuit, something that you wouldn't probably wear in public, but it has, excuse me, a bunch of sensors built in. And when you wear it and you take a picture of yourself, it gives you the exact body measurements of yourself. And so you can go on their site and you can find things that perfectly fit you. That means less waste, less transportation costs in returning goods and things like that when we talk about SDGs, just because they built a really cool physical thing that allows you to know your body measurements and shop better online. The same thing is what they did in the beauty industry. This girl holding her glasses is actually this funny spectacle that they built, and it's got all these colors in it. They built a companion app that will recognize the colors and calibrate your face color based on the colors of the glasses when you take a picture in the app. And then it will help you choose what makeup products are right for you. And what it could even extend to what clothing colors are right for you based on your skin tone. And that's really cool because people are of all different colors, you know, and it's really hard to find makeup that matches your color. And the bottom example is helping to use and navigate the digital world, or sorry, if we go back, the bottom example is the physical world and a tool that helps you navigate the physical world. So this is Google Lens, and it helps you hold up your phone and be able to translate what's going on in the physical world. It works for signage and now handwriting, and it helps me every day here. So I want you to also think about, is there a way in the physical world that you can use digital to break down any barriers that exist? And finally, when we talk about inclusivity, it's on the next page that sometimes there's other barriers that aren't physical and they aren't things that we can easily see. It's on the next page, if you would. There are economic barriers sometimes. And so if we can think flexibly about the rules that we have set in place for commerce, or the rules that we have set in place for signing up for things, like if you need a telephone number even. So one of the really cool things about this brand here, it's a Vietnamese brand, and I won't try to say the name, but there's alternative payments, and they accept the ability to pay later, pay in installments, or even make a savings plan so that you can save up for goods, which is a pretty cool thing for a retailer to think about. Now, if we move forward, the next thing I want to show you is sometimes in the world, we used to think about manual things. And now if we think about automation, there are things, if you can jump forward to the next page. there are things in the physical world that used to take us a long time, but sometimes we can use robots and sensors. So if you look at the next page, this is again Muji, and they in their retail store are using robots and sensors to allow you to just automatically check out. On the next page, you'll see that there's a checkout table. What you do is you just put your basket there and it automatically scans everything because there's a sensor on every product in a store. Pretty convenient. So is there a way you can use sensors in the work that you do? So we have just a little bit of time left, but I want to talk about impact and how you can create that. We used to talk about things that were related to goods and buying goods. And it's 2 pages from now, if you would. But now we're moving to a future where we are selling files and thoughts. We no longer always sell physical goods. So if you could go to page 40, it's actually 3 pages ahead. One more. One more. Oh, advance 2, please. So the advance maybe 2 more, please. The important thing, yes, this is perfect. The important thing to think about is that the internet, everything that we consume is kind of built on free labor. It was built where we didn't have, our creators didn't really get paid. The internet was also built in an environment where privacy on the next page wasn't necessarily a thing. But what we're starting to see now is with the rise of so much content, and also on the next page, the rise of realization that there's so much on the internet that our privacy is really important, that there's a bunch of tools being put into place that help you actually get paid for the content that you put out there. If you go to the next page, what you see right now is a lot of small businesses were really hurt by the last couple of years, that there was tons of layoffs and things like that. But what I see in the Vietnam culture is pretty cool. If you go to the next slide, there's a lot of people that are making money outside of the job that they actually have. So on the next page, you can see how many people in Vietnam get paid for something that's not their core skill set. And what I mean by that is creators, people on social media. On the next page, you can see how important this is. It's pretty cool. What's happening is that almost all of the major social platforms today are building in an infrastructure so creators can get paid. And with so many people getting paid for this type of thing or wanting to get paid for this type of thing in Vietnam, it's really important to think about how can you maybe help more people get paid for their thoughts and their goods. Now, this is also important because on the next page, the real world sometimes impacts the digital world, and sometimes the digital world impacts the physical world. So what I mean by that is on the next page, the digital world is now being called the meta world. And this is things like avatars and Meta. Facebook is called Meta now. So in Vietnam, on the next page, a lot of people are buying these goods in the digital space. There's a lot of, in the world, a lot of young people are buying things. They're buying, skins for their characters and avatars, or products like Prada bags so their character can carry it. But in Vietnam, 50% of the population has bought something in the digital world, which is pretty cool. This is like a digital good. And there's a massive growth in searches for virtual games and gaming and things like that. So this is becoming even more important in your culture. But how can the digital world impact the physical world? This is on the next page. What we're seeing in Vietnam is really cool. There's a rise of digital jobs, meaning people creating content for these physical world spaces. And what's even cooler is that a lot of people doing this have never had a bank account before. They've never had maybe a super formal job, but these physical spaces are helping them actually get a physical job. Pretty cool. You kind of see this in the next example, which is from last year's Young Lions. You saw an example where a bunch of students thought that, what if we could create a game that didn't have trees? And then we could teach people about the environment, because they could feel like they can't hide behind trees anymore because there's no trees in that digital environment. And then they could care about the physical world. That's pretty cool. So I want to go forward to the next couple of examples before we wrap up. So if you could go 2 slides forward, please. One more slide, please. We have seen a world where we used to focus on individualism. We used to focus on a solo person shopping. And now we're moving to a collectivist society, meaning a group of people. What's really important for your culture is that this is kind of core to who you are. On the next page, I'll show you why. There's a really cool research group called Great Hofstede, and Hofstede studies how different cultures behave and kind of compares different cultures. And as you know, the Vietnam society is not so individualistic, definitely not like America, that you've got a watching out for each other type of attitude. And you can even see this on the next page, that searches in the last year are all about spending time with friends and family. That 11% increase in activities that we can do with our friends happened, and that even 16% increase in searches and spending time with our families. And I'll show you that stat on the next page. But what's happening here is this is translating into UX design, that we're seeing design on the next page that helps facilitate group buying. There's some ideas coming out of China that are all about how do we facilitate families buying products together, or how do we design things that friends can buy things together. So this is the idea of group buying, social buying, and that's on the next page. This example is a social media platform called Pinduoduo that makes buying social. I also want to show you the next page, that live streaming is exactly this, that all of the consuming of live video together with your friends is entirely social. And on the next page, you can see there's so many social platforms that are adding live stream and making things a collective experience. So think about how you can make impact by getting people together through digital live streams and all of that. And finally, how can you get people to maybe design together on the following page? There are many examples where brands are asking people to co-create with them and design products that they then actually launch. This is on the next page. The example I want to quickly call out for you is in the back. This is Lego. They ask people to submit ideas, and then Lego will actually create whatever products that they were looking for. So finally, in conclusion, I want you to start to think about, this is on the 2 pages from now, that when we think about brands, 63% of us are attracted to brands that make the world a better place. 86% of us are attracted to brands that should act beyond the product or service that they're selling. So think beyond the brief, think beyond the obvious, think about how you can make greater impact. This is on a couple pages from now. If we can go to, I think 3 pages from now. The idea is that I want you to think about human-centered tech and how you can quantify the long-term impact, how you can make change in the world. Because right now, Vietnam is going through a big change. Vietnam has decided that AI will be one of the core elements of its future. Vietnam is rising quickly in the global standard. currently it rose 14 places in the last year in the ability to execute on AI, and it's currently 62 out of 160 countries. So what's important for your career is that you think about how you can take these skills and the things that bother you today and export them to the rest of the world, and how you can take the world's challenges and import them to Vietnam and say, we can solve them because your country's government has decided it's important, and they've decided that digital is the way of the future. So in conclusion, the shape of the world is you. The shape of the world is your thoughts. It is critical that your critical thinking will create, or it's critical that you think about how your critical thinking will create the ripple that impacts the world, because it's your thinking and what you import to Vietnam and export to Vietnam, or from Vietnam rather, that will change the shape of the world. It's really you. So I leave you with that. Good luck. I'm so excited to see everything that you will not only do with Young Lions, but everything that you'll do in your future. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jenessa. We're moving forward to our Q&A sections right now. While we're waiting for our future Young Lions giving you questions, I did some research and discovered that you love corny jokes. Do you mind? Let me do one.
Sure. One of my original jokes is, what type of shoes do artists wear? This one might be hard, but if you know some American brands, you might be able to figure it out.
I don't know, sorry.
Skechers.
Skechers. All right.
Yeah. So it's very, very silly. An American candy is called Laffy Taffy, and they have all the jokes I love. It's wonderful.
In the wrap?
Yeah, in the wrappers. I highly encourage everyone to check them out.
Right. We've got our first questions. What are your favorites or the most memorable digital campaigns?
That is a great question. So last year, coming out of Asia, I believe it was in Singapore, there was a great campaign for Toyota. And Toyota, of course, saw that, like all of us, many neighborhood businesses were really struggling. At the same time, Toyota being a business, they need to sell cars. And so what they did is they partnered with local small businesses, and then they built an interface where customers who wanted to take a test drive could take a profile quiz, kind of like exam of what you're interested in and such. And that helped Toyota understand that, oh, this customer really likes really cool vintage stores. So while they're going on a test drive, we're going to send them to a vintage store to go check out. And so Toyota was able to not only get an increase in sales from cars, but they were able to help support the surrounding community and drive business for small businesses by a quiz, basically a Google form. And I thought that was a wonderful example of digital in supporting the community.
Thanks for great sharing. Regarding CDGs, and as long-term as this project usually be, what do you think of the measure of impact?
Well, that's a really good question. A lot of times it's really hard to think about SDGs and measurement, or anytime a client is looking to measure impact, because you have to think differently than you would for a lot of other things like sales and things like that. But there is an idea of looking at a double bottom line, meaning not only what are you doing in the short term, what are your immediate goals as a business or for your clients, but also what are you doing for humanity. Sometimes we also have to think differently about what impact means. In our case, we wanted to solve the food waste issue, which meant we actually have to get people to stop wasting food, but we weren't ready for that measurement. So we had to think about stages of measurement. And when it comes to impact, you might need to think about not just your long-term goal, but some of the short-term goals that tell you that you're moving in the right direction for your long-term goal. And it also relates to maybe lives changed or people, instead of just transactions and some of the normal business speak.
All right, next questions for you is, what would you do when you are feeling lack of ideas?
Sleep, shower, but take a break. Yeah, sometimes, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to think. I'm so smart. I should have this answer. Like, why am I not thinking of this answer? Take a break. Just do something fun. Do something that makes you feel good. You'll be under a time pressure in this, so definitely don't be afraid to take a break. But there are some go-to tools that I've collected over the years that help kickstart my thinking. One of my favorites is called Future Foresight or Foresight Factory. I get it messed up every time, but that website is a really great resource for global trends and cool stuff happening all over the world. I also love to subscribe to its email because it is a paid tool, but you can get inspiration every day for free. And Cassandra Report is also amazing for that. So I'll just look at cool stuff. I'll also look at things like Fast Company and read some articles to just see what's cool out there and see if anything sparks my interest.
All right, we've got so many questions for you, Jenessa. What are the key differences between user experiences and customer experiences?
That is a wonderful question. So they really do overlap. Great UX has great CX. CX is just a little bit broader. You think about not only the interaction of something, but you might think about how do you get people to that interaction. And you also have to really understand their core initial motivations and maybe even what they do after they interact with that product. So it's really more about a full journey rather than one particular moment usually.
Next one. What do you think about the current financial with Gen Z and how we impact them?
Current financial. I'm not sure what you mean. Maybe.
I'm not sure what the we means here.
I'm sorry?
I'm not sure what the we part's like, how we impact them here.
Yeah, if you could clarify your question and try to rewrite it, I'll try to answer it.
Next one is, what do you think about the goal of digital marketing is to focus on increasing sales or increasing customer experiences and satisfaction?
It's a wonderful question too. Your client will always tell you increasing sales, but if you don't have good customer experience, you're not going to increase sales for long because reputation always catches up with you. You have to have those conversations though about what matters right now and what matters in the long term. And sometimes you have to make the story about why customer experience will help contribute to sales. And there's a lot of data out there that can help you tell that story.
How to simplify the digital solutions, an app, for example, because whenever I think of it, it contains lots of steps.
That's a great question. So there's a concept of MVP, minimum viable product. It means what is the minimum stuff that I need to make this actually work? So sometimes when we're doing like form fields and signups and stuff, maybe we only need an email and then we can send them an email afterwards to follow up with all the other information we need. Or because of cookies, like little pieces of code that remember who you are, we can remember that you came to the website before and ask you for more information again. So what's important is to think about, what do I need now, right now? And then is there a way that I can get additional information that might be important, but not super essential a little bit later? Also, sometimes you don't know the answer. So you test, you do A/B testing. You look at what's going on now and what's going on later and see how you can adjust.
Yeah, sorry. Next one's, in your perspective, which criteria of digital campaigns that you prioritize the most?
That is also a really good question. I'm a strategist, so I appreciate really beautiful creative. I was trained as a graphic designer, and that is really good because a lot of people, are turned off by how things come to life. But it needs to be rooted in some thought and some meaning. and followed through with the impact. So if you're able to connect the dots and show why you made certain design decisions, why you were able to execute in the way you did, and then how that impact and what you measured actually supported what you set out to do, that's always the best case study. And it always ends up in the most impactful numbers as well. So why? Just answer the question why at every step.
All right. Next ones. Does digital marketing miss creativity or just about tactics with the tools?
Oh, absolutely, creativity. So the example of TikTok is an awesome example of how TikTok's being used for education purposes rather than what it was originally intended. Digital marketing sometimes is about learning about culture first and recognizing what's happening and then thinking about how we can apply it. But we'll never end up with innovation and cool digital stuff if we don't use creativity. Totally.
What do you think the biggest motivations for young users to engage with the digital changes in NFT, crypto that are related to the financial management and issues?
Thank you for clarifying. Actually, I think it's accessibility of this industry. This is a cool industry, and I think a lot of people are really interested in it, but it's kind of complex, and there's not a lot of make it simple. There is in financial industry overall. The financial industry has really changed in the last maybe 20 years to make it a lot more accessible for people that are newer to banking and just general finances. But the NFT crypto industry is still kind of baby. They haven't really learned that lesson. There's a lot of nerds or first movers, if you will, that are using this tech. And they get really into it. They get super passionate, but it's quick to turn off people that maybe can't quite follow the super techie conversation. So make it simple. Make it something that you can explain to pretty much anybody. And that makes it a lot more accessible and a lot less scary to people.
Okay, times is nearly up, but do you mind please answer the last two questions?
Sure.
Questions. The first was, what is your importance? What is more important, digital solutions versus customer insight versus creativity? Which is funny, quirky.
Oh, that is so tough. They're all important. And it really depends on who's answering the question, because you talk to some of the other jury members that you had presenting today, and they will answer completely different. At the end of the day, what technology you're using doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, you can solve the same problem in a million different ways with different tech solutions and say it in different ways, have different influencers support your campaign or different creative assets. I would say customer insight, totally biased, of course, but if you're not solving what a customer need is or a human need is, you'll go unnoticed. If you are rooted in an insight and an understanding, there is amazing talent everywhere that can help you bring that to life. What you do first may not work. You may have to try again, but you have a solid idea that you can execute on. So I would say customer insight, and then what solution you use, how it goes to market, can be a number of things.
All right, very last questions. From the customer behavior perspective, do you think people are shifting to meta world rather than the physical world?
Yeah, especially the last 2 years. We've been stuck in our four walls of our homes, and it's kind of been our gateway to socialize into the outside world. But this is kind of getting philosophical, I guess, I'm sorry, but as a philosopher, we also think about what that's done to us. We haven't been able to socialize beyond the people that we live with so much in real world conversations. And so we've gotten a little bit conditioned in the last 2 years to just talk in short messages and to see screens or not even see video faces sometimes. So yes, I think that the meta world has really taken hold in the last 2 years, especially, and we're getting a lot more comfortable with that in a lot of ways that we didn't see a few years ago.
Yeah, I know that I said to you that was the very last questions, but just the one more pops up, and not sure that if you are related to this question, but how does blockchains encrypt improve customer experiences?
Yeah, it's an awesome question because I think blockchain, crypto, NFT, all of that seems kind of new tech that not a lot of people have a lot of experience with. But here at my company, we actually use blockchain and we use it for a very practical thing. I mentioned luxury goods in the black market earlier, and there's a lot of problems with certain markets where people will make reproductions of luxury goods, and people don't know what's authentic or what's not. So blockchain can help you basically register that product, kind of like you used to buy something and you would send a postcard or you would send an email to say, hey, I bought this. But blockchain will do that in the same way, but in a digital way, and make it like official, non-changeable. And then when somebody else buys that product on the resale market, you can change the transfer of ownership. And then there's basically a digital certificate that confirms the authenticity of this product. That's a real world thing that we do for some of our clients. Another example is we actually help authenticate the supply chain, because sometimes sustainable sourcing is really important, like in the luxury jewelry business, making sure diamonds are ethically sourced, or making sure that organic farming practices make their way into the end product. So blockchain can help because basically the suppliers are registered, and then the end consumer can scan like a QR code and they can see the entire supply chain that went into making this product come to them, and see that, oh yes, this person or this business was a credible business and is what they say that they were in all of their marketing materials. So a practical example is authenticity and making sure nobody's lying along the way.
All right. One more questions. And how can blockchain change customer interactions or the customer experiences?
Yeah, so that example is kind of that. And so what it means for us is that we have to think about how do we use the idea that we're using blockchain in communications, but then also make it an accessible way for a customer to access the blockchain. So for us in that example that I just explained, it means literally a QR code where they access a special website that's dedicated to just that one product. And for us, it means like we have a lot of dynamic creative things that change for each customer because each website is specific to just that product. But for a customer experience standpoint, it means that each customer can have a really personalized experience, that they can see, the product authenticity and the supply chain and stuff of just their product. They are no longer looking at a website that's speaks the same language to all the customers, but it's super hyper personalized to just them, which is pretty cool.
All right, that should be it, I think. Thank you so much for taking your time inspiring our future young lions here in Vietnam. And I wish you all the best.
Yes, thank you so much. Good luck, everyone. I'm so excited for you.
Yeah.